This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. Let's welcome to the show today, Harriette Sucher.
Oh, good morning. I'm hoping we're going to cover the Holy Grail Psalm. Anyway.
I've got them all in there for this week, so we're going to cover as much as we can.
Amen.
And then I'd like to also welcome to the show Nolan Del Campo.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. All right, so last week we left off, and of course my iPhone, or my iPods had taken a crap on me just at the last minute when Harriette and I were talking about one of her solves. So I'm going to get us right back to that if I can. Hello, come on now. There we go. Actually, I put in here first this solve that you have from the letter from 1924, Harriette. It was a letter between two gold panners, right?
Yeah, two prospectors. Oh my God, when I saw that, I said, sorry to hear your ass is a dragon, and there's two prospectors. I said, this is so Zodiac, it's so early. Okay.
Well, and my question was,
I was saying, get this really quick. There are many people are saying they assume the guy that's the deathbed guy that's going to put something in the San Francisco Examiner. His name John.
Right,
Jack,
but this is well before Jack. So this is May 28th of 1924 that this letter's written, correct?
Yeah. Well, there's so many people are saying it's an alleged coded letter. They're not sure when it's written. I saw that. I said, I know this system. This is 1942. And I was like, oh my God, where's the Z for Zodiac code? And I find it in the other prospector who's supposed to be the friend. Oh
right.
God, I'm all tore up here and I'm practically leaping out of the bed when I saw this coded letter.
Well, and it says the copy was enclosed in one of the letters from Brown, which was dated May 28, 1924. So it says it's the only dated and authenticated copy in existence. So they are stating, at least on face value, that this was dated May 24th of 1924, which I know is well before Jack and well before Zodiac and all of those things. But you found that it contains similar decoding. What did you call it? You said a
stenographic code, including the date, the anagram, and it comes out as August 9th, 1942. And it's before Jack is fully in the military. I mean, there's so much information there. And I was so thrilled to get it done, even though I'm all laid up here.
Right. It's a very interesting one. I did read it briefly to just kind of let everybody know what this letter was stating. Was basically a gold miner had found a pocket of gold, in which case it was deep in the mountains, and he was not well at the time when he found it, and he was able to get out of there with a small amount, but he had then hidden the rest, and he was attempting to let his partner or buddy that does gold mining as well know where this area was in case he didn't make it back, that his buddy could go and find this. And they were actually using the San Francisco Examiner to get their messages back and forth, which is kind of consistent with what we've been seeing with the mob and with the newspapers and with the Zodiac cases, in which case they're using the media as their way to get messages to each other. So I'm just going to go straight to the solve for this on you. Do you have that to read, or do you want me to read it, Harriette?
Oh, I know what the solve says because I know what the words were, and I thank whoever puts the teal background stuff, and then the other partial. Anyways, it says 1 TTTT, nicknamed FDR. The message you entered was the DET for determined lost over Vancouver camp, and then it goes dash 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 L dash 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 1 dash dash dash. It's proving that the message was lost. But here's the coup de grace. 2, Nixon/Truman found old secede year General George Washington Zodiac code, new, underlined, now only in use. Each send out acknowledgement. William Randolph Hearst, San Francisco, L.A., EO for George Hodel, ILL, Illinois for Monterey, and then the 2 nominatios. I understand it. Anyways, Valiant RK and John Walker Terrence II. Then it says also RSO, that's Regional Security or Strategy Office, Westminster Abbey, JK, which is Joseph Kennedy, and then I believe it ends with thank you, Regional Security Office, Vatican Holy See, New York, AB for just the Archbishop. So when I saw that, I said, why would it just be signed Archbishop? Then I'm finding out it's Archbishop Stillman, who knew the Kennedys, who knew the UK people, who knew FDR. I said, well, that's it. So we got the classic 4 T's to tell the truth. And then we've got the Holy See. We just did the show about a week or so ago where the Holy See had finally found some extra stuff left over in New York for Jack. I mean,
The remedy is what you're saying.
Yeah. So this is all Cold War. Well, it's going to be the Cold War, but it's MK Ultra starting around the early 1940s. You know, the LSD stuff. I mean, there's so much in there. And so that early solve is confirming all future solves.
So they're saying this is a new system that was the use of it began in 1942 is what you're saying?
Yeah, and we got solved that we've done shows where Jack is trying to confess until he's blue in the face that it's the old Zodiac secede year code that Nixon and Truman found, which is 99.99% hard to solve, you know, by most people because it's a couple hundred years old.
So it's not new. It's new to their use, but it was made up, you're saying, during President Washington's time?
Yeah, it's 18th century, and it goes back to actually the 16th century Cardano grill cipher method and all this stuff, how they used it then. So most people are not thinking, you know, like it was, you know, the 16th, 17th, and 18th century. So that's how it was able to pass through all these systems. And, you know, people in China couldn't figure it out. The Russians couldn't figure it out. But you had the people in charge in America, and I think parts of the UK, they could understand it. Especially if you were dyslexic. I'm dyslexic.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So then that takes us to where we left off last week, which is the hello, it's me letter. And for those that are catching up, or if this is the first time you're hearing about this letter, this is a letter that is sent in regards to the Atlanta, Georgia child killer in the ATKID case. And it says, hello, it's me. Haven't you people figured out who is killing these little people yet? I'll give you a hint. I used to be in San Francisco. I used to stalk women, but I like to kill children now. At all my victims' bodies, I have left certain clues, but I guess it's too much for you rebels to handle. So I guess I'll have to tell you, I'll try to kill children. I don't know what he meant to say here. Kill children because they are so easy to pick off. By the way, if you still have letters from the other murders, I am not writing in the same handwriting. So now we're going to discuss that solve, which I believe you started to get into, but I lost sound last week. And you believe that this has a lot to do with everything, including Wayne Williams, Atlanta child killer, the Crane murder. So this really kind of ciphered out to a whole lot of different things. You want to go ahead and read that one for us?
Well, I don't have it to see right now, but I know it says something to the effect of.
Do you want me to read it? I have it in front of me.
Yeah, you can read it because it's got the 4 T's in there. All
right.
Anyways, go.
Let's see what we got here. So let's see. So this is the Atlanta child killer letter from 3/8 of 81. It's the letter and the envelope message together. And it says facsimile 3881 61111. What does that all mean? Is that like a
I think it's military time.
The 3881?
He's using military. Yeah, he's using military time because he's addressing Carter had just left, but they say Carter had dropped away from the military, the Navy, but I think he was secretly still with them. I
feel like this is more of an address. I feel like this is more of an address because 3881 is not even a number in the number system for military. It only goes to 24. So 3881 6111 Mount 209 1 Woodland Drive, Plains, Georgia. Does that any of that ring a bell?
Oh, definitely. Carter had his Secret Service there with him in Plains, Georgia.
I got you.
Okay. His office there and a Secret Service office.
So then it says, Mr. Carter, you actually did answer question, and I have the Holy See Archbishop Terrence Cook of New York. Who's that?
He's the Archbishop that followed Spellman and knew the Kennedys.
Oh. Okay. Of New York, Twin Towers, attention. Even UC Davis have saved OU sick. What's the OU?
He had an eye. He was going temporarily blind, so they fixed his eyes.
Have saved OU sick.
Ocular ubiquity, something like that. So he's well. He's just so happy he's well.
Almi from Grave used to be Zodiac fame. I'm fine. Off MK Ultra. Still okay. To tell the what is that? TTTT is to tell the truth.
Yeah. Yep. Classic 4 T's.
Okay.
Anyway,
Liberty Bell, Americana series, HVL saliva image stamp, do future EO executive order. Danto.
Yeah, executive order.
And Danto is Dr. Danto out of the Oakland County child murders. Franklin Club Retirement Community 88 chef. What's that?
Christopher Bush. They faked his death.
We made deal, switch classified Trenton State Hospital. And Trenton State Hospital, is that the one that's in Canada?
No, that's the anthrax letters where they start getting the Trenton stuff in anthrax. But anyway, so standing out big time.
Hospital. Let's see, WPP. What is WPP? Dan Cooper.
Oh, that's Witness Protection Program.
Dan Cooper. Okay, WFA body, last named Broad. What is that?
The WFA, according to this solve, there's another one saying the same thing, that they stashed Daniel B. Cooper as a white female adult in that Trenton hospital on ice. So
he was dead at that point?
Yeah, they had shot down the real Dan Cooper, November 1971, just days before the DB Cooper event. So they did retrieve his body, and then they stashed him under a female in Trenton, New Jersey. That's what this is saying.
Gotcha. So ID, I shot head under sheet 11/19/78. What does that mean?
That means where the Christopher Bush location is, there's a body under the sheet, and he says he shot a dead body. Because they had decided to save his life. There were 3 popes that year, so the 3rd pope is John Paul II saying, we're not going to do this. We're going to save this guy's life. We're trying to get the Nazis, not him.
Who's that?
Anyway, keep
Who's
going.
him? Who's him?
Oh,
Chris Bush?
The original execute order, because of what the people were involved with, was to they thought a version of getting even was to get these kids of these people who helped the Nazis get to America. But the 3rd pope that year is saying, no, we're not doing that. We're going to save this guy's life.
Save Chris Bush's life?
Yeah, and you can look until you're blue in the face, but there are no records of Christopher Brian Bush suicide. And that's even according to other websites. They were scratching their heads. How come there's no record of a suicide for this guy? But there is what's in the paper that says he's dead. That's it.
Huh.
So they faked his death. I can, I'm just a code breaker. So,
they faked his death and then attempted to blame the Oakland County child murders on him as a patsy, basically?
Yes and no. I think it logically is that he's supposed to cooperate to help get these other Nazis that they're really after. And it's a global thing that's including Carter at the time to get them to justice.
Gotcha.
And
so
I does get served justice.
What is IE?
That E means it is or thereafter. So therefore they marry.
301, Chris Bush, Nut House, Kathy King, Mary, 2 still alive. To tell the truth, 14F13. What's 14F13? Nazi Shalom.
That's the code for how they were killing Jews mainly. The F is briefly for the German word for death. I can't remember what it is, but it's their code. And so they were going around in cars and picking up the Jews, mainly the Jews, and then bringing them to death camps. Telling the kids, we're going to take you to see your mom, but they took them to death.
And then the Bible, Kuhl, Ducher, hands at EOR print passports. Did I say that right?
Hans Jur Botcher.
Honjur.
A bunch of passports for these guys to help them get to the United States.
And then you had 2 Nazi symbols. Albert Ducher to die. NEXT. Next. I'm reading different lines. Next on 12/19, Burlington Northern Station, Cicero, Illinois. Did I have that right?
Yeah, it's where he worked. And he does die that day. And they still can't confirm whether he was suicided or whether he was murdered, but he dies on the train that he worked at.
So Albert Ducher was a former Nazi that has been brought here to the United States, or what? Did he smuggle himself in here? Nobody's aware that he was actually a Nazi, or do you believe he was brought in by the government, such as like the scientists and other individuals we've seen them house after? No?
Operation Paperclip.
It's saying that people help sneak them through the Operation Freedom from in the Vietnam, North Vietnam to South Vietnam, and the Catholics were brought, and they were pretending to be nurses. I'm not nurses who were pretending to be. I got a nurse. Hello.
Tell me your name.
I'm Harriette Sucher. I'm going to mute you, okay? Hold on. I got to mute.
All right, well, I'm going to read this, and then we can have her catch up when she's done.
Okay.
So, to tell the truth, Nixon sent 1970s Palm Beach, Mar-a-Lago for his NASA perform autopsy. Marjorie Alette photos sent to Graysmith. Earthrise stamp, Halloween card. Got toy. I issue Reagan ultimatum 5 p.m. ATKID, gentle, meek, Pope, Carol Woj. Oh, I won't be able to pronounce that name. WOJTLA. It looks like is. Oh, there you are.
I'm gonna have to go because they're here to look at my.
Okay, all right. I'll let you go, and then I guess I'll. I don't know.
You read the most important solve. That's the coup de grace.
Well, I haven't finished it yet, and I had more solves in here. So if you go, then I'm going to. I don't know what to do. That this is the show today.
Yeah. Okay, I gotta go. I got 3 doctors here. Okay.
All right, bye. All right. Well, we're gonna try and make sense of this ourselves, Nolan.
Okay.
Let's see. Where was I at? Earthrise stamp, Halloween card, got toy. I issue Reagan ultimatum 5 I don't know what the kind is. Gentle, meek, Pope, Carol Wojtla. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to say that. As if you could request shitty President Reagan, get GSII. I suggest look over by South Lake Tahoe in TNF, UP off 80 and 20. I think that it's probably indicating where Donna Lass's remains were found. Yeah. 5,311 feet. So they're saying that that's the level on the mountain that they'd find her. Help Donna Lass RN family. Swearingham private investigator get victims' bodies. FYI, my wife, 30, even give me 1 male baby. So this letter being written in 1981 does actually come in after the fact that Charles is born, which is Jack's biological son from Nora. So it is chronologically correct in that time frame. This is one of the first times he's speaking about actually having had a son. So she says this is the whole. This was the Atlanta, Georgia child killer mailing in this "Hello, it's me" letter saying, "Haven't you people figured out who is killing these little people? I'll give you a hint. I used to be in San Francisco and I used to stalk women." So it's coming across as though it's a Zodiac letter. He says he's writing he's not writing in the same hand, and he splits it, hand and writing. And Dennis and I discussed the fact that Jack was ambidextrous. He would actually write with both hands. So and I think we can actually move on to, let me see. We're going to find, well, no, I talked about it last week, I believe, in regards to this letter, and the FBI handwriting examiners had mentioned that they believed that there were, that the line quality, and there were some differences in it. However, they found that the characteristics were still consistent with the Zodiac. So as if to say that one of the things that would change the items that they stated were different in this handwriting would be somebody simply changing hands. You're not as well honed in. You've got irregular line quality because you're not as well habituated with those muscle movements in the non-dominant hand. So that would cause things to be a little more shaky, a little less straight and fluid, but that the characteristics of the actual writing itself were consistent with the Zodiac killer's writing. So for me, if Jack had swapped hands, that would overcome the presumption that those differences are now no longer differences, but explained by the fact that he used the non-dominant hand to write. And meanwhile, like I tell anybody, if you're right-handed and you break your right arm and you have to write with your left hand while that hand is casted up and healing, then you're going to have the inability to have the muscle control. So you'll find that you're not exactly specific when you draw a line. It may be a little shaky, it may be tremorous, and then you'll see the unevenness of the actual handwriting, and the slants will go back and forth. There are specific things that are going to happen when you write with your non-dominant hand. However, the form is what comes from your brain. So the construction, the shape, the amount of strokes that it takes to make those letters, all of those are something that are emanated from the brain. So those things remain the same. And I actually tested somebody who had made the same statement that they broke their hand, had to use the opposite hand. His handwriting looked nothing alike. So I asked him then and there, go ahead and write this message for me. And he did it with his dominant hand because it had been quite some time since he had broke his hand. And then I asked him to repeat the same message with his non-dominant hand. And after he was done with them, yes, one looked like he was a little drunk. The other one looked just like his normal handwriting. But when I showed him all the consistencies in the form, the construction, the shape, the amount of strokes taken to do it, all of those things were still there. It just was like he had had too much to drink or was maybe on some medication that caused his motor skills to be a little, lackadaisical. So that's what I take from that particular FBI FOIA message, is that they're stating those differences in line quality and shakiness is irregular, but all of the characteristics that they were looking for are consistent with the Zodiac stuff. She has another solve on here, and this one is from the Dr. Danto letter. This one at least is typed out and it's not in her coded form, so I can actually read this. And it says, Naperville State Hospital, Dr. Emmanuel Tenay, you deprogrammed every secret thing, Patty Hearst. To tell the truth, I did kill Richard Nixon's traitor, Robert Stebbins' boy in Oakland County, and Fort Collins, Third Reich 88 Heil Hitler landowner, General Electric Fermi nuclear power plant, J.W. Mihalik, daughter. Then 1954, Vice President Nixon, UN-funded Vietnamese passage to freedom, U.S. Navy Barry King's boy. UIR is Ube Luce Remedium. Where is the remedy? Dr. Tenay, please help me. Now, everybody has to remember that this is back from 1976. So even though he is in this recent solve we just talked about, he has received that remedy and he's grateful for it. I'm backtracking to a solve that Harriette didn't have prepared at the time that I read the Dr. Danto letter from the Oakland County child murders, which was 1976 and 1977. And I believe that this letter came in at some point in 1977. So it is previous to him stating that he's got the cure. So it says, where is the remedy? Dr. Tenay, please help me. I'm ill and I'm desperate. Please save me. I'm under shitty, deviant Sidney Gottlieb mind control program. President Carter send half value layer radiation exposure saliva Liberty Bell image letter to the police. You must help this killer named JWT. OU, Oculus, Turk, both eyes are ill, nearly gone crazy. Please, as there is no one else. Do you have the red stamp ad usum for the use for the Sunday LSD after midnight remedy? If true, please send it in a letter to Nomen Nessio Dennis Kaufman, Senior, beautiful wife Nora, who's now with me in Cotton, Minnesota. Signed, a Utica Community School vendor, Nomen Nessio J.W. Terrence. Now, that kind of just gave me goosebumps right there. We can discuss this, Nolan, because I do have some background on this. So we know that in 76, 77, Jack and Nora are in Minnesota. So that message is consistent with the time frame. We do know that at some point in time, the kids actually went to Michigan to live with Nora Kaufman's ex-husband. So her children are all from a man that live in Michigan, which is relatively close and where the Oakland County child murders occurred. So he's asking them to send the remedy, it looks like, to Dennis Kaufman Sr., which would be Dennis Kaufman's dad. And Dennis Kaufman is the client who hired me. And he's also stating that they are, in fact, in Cotton, Minnesota. So there are some consistencies. The time frame, once again, matches. It always kind of blows me away when the information is consistent with what we know is going on at that time.
And this solve, where was it originally sent to? Who was the recipient?
This letter was it's supposedly the individual that was assisting the Oakland County child murder. He's stating that he's an accomplice by virtue of he's there when the killer is bringing these kids in. Do you remember that typewritten letter that was sent to the therapist, Dr. Danto, in the Oakland County child murder case? It was quite a long letter. He's attempting to sound like he's, English isn't his first language. However, we found that the print in here, or the use of the number 8 instead of the apostrophe is consistent with the typed out letters in the Dear Draft Board letters. So he's sending this letter to Dr. Danto, the therapist, saying he'll turn himself in if he's given immunity, but he's afraid that that the killer is going to kill him for having reached out. And of course, he never appears or shows up at the location where he says he'll turn himself in. So again, it's one of these scenarios where we get these letters where I believe it's actually the suspect that's writing them. He claims that he'll turn himself in, usually at a bar. That's the way the progression of these letters have gone all the way back to Georgette Bauerdorf. I'll turn myself in at a bar. And then, they're obviously there waiting to pick this person up, and that person never avails themselves to anybody at the bar. So that letter then was supposed to have been followed up by a message. He even states it in the letter that put in the newspaper, 3 weeks till snow or whatever it is. Let me see. Oh, the trees to bloom in 3 weeks. So again, we see this individual who is very familiar with, we're sending messages back and forth between the newspapers and media. We're using the media basically as our communication. And he says that if Dr. Danto puts that in, then he'll know that he has his immunity and he can turn himself in. We didn't see that happen, unfortunately. Well, that brings us to the ghost killer letter, and this is a new letter in the Atlanta, Georgia child killer case. And this one was extremely interesting to me because this is where I started to think, why would a serial killer state that politicians are running around scared because of him?
I have no idea.
Right? Well, this is something out of out of Dennis's book. If Jack was killing during this time, when did he have time to do these murders? And I know that we've read this before, but he says 1979, 1980, and 1981. Now, you guys have to remember that this book was produced before I discovered that Jack was part of the Atlanta, Georgia child killing cases. And we know that specifically these particular murders occurred 79, 80, and 81. And then just like the Zodiac fell off the face of the earth and many others, the Oakland County child murders, once these series of murders were done, it was as if you never heard from this individual ever again. So in Dennis's book, produced before he even met me, he talks about Jack having this time during 79, 80, and 81 to kill. And that's because he would sedate that he's going camping with Dennis and his friend, but then he would literally drop them off at camp and Jack would disappear for days and weeks at a time. And so I have this as a backup because we've discussed it before, to give or show that Jack had the ability to be traveling and doing whatever he wanted to do. And nobody was aware of him even being gone because Dennis wasn't about to say a word to his mother or anybody else. He enjoyed the freedom and being away from Jack. So this is what this letter reads. It says, well, you're all afraid, you're all upset because none of those cops have caught me yet. I've struck again and didn't leave a clue. Now the whole city doesn't know what to do. You finally found Luby. He's been there all the while. Keep looking, you might find another child. You think that the number stops at 19. Man, there are some things you haven't seen. One night, some kids got killed in a fire. I struck the match so the death toll is higher. But you can't seem to catch me. I wonder why. Thousands of you see me every day when I pass by. It's pathetic to know that I can get away with first-degree murder on any chosen day. Politicians are worried as the plot thickens, leaders running around like headless chickens. All different cops can't cooperate with the others. You'll never catch me, you bumbling mothers. Go back from the ridiculous to the sublime, and you'll find that I've been with you every time. You'd better start looking before it's too late, or there will be another 50 to 48. So now I leave you with this piece of evidence. Don't do something stupid like dust it for Prince, the ghost killer.
Wow.
Ooh, goosebumps again. Now, what this means to me in connection to the communications of the Zodiac killer, first off, it's a poem. We've seen poems out of the Zodiac, the Titwillow. We see that he likes to use a lot of poetic references, even poetic styles when he writes. So that was number one on the list, that we have a serial killer out there that likes poems. So we can think of the little list. That was another poetic style communication. that really clued me in. How many sadistic people do you have out there killing people that would also then turn around and write a poem to law enforcement or to the media in order to get their attention? Didn't leave a clue. We just had the first letter from this very same killer who said, hello, it's me. The hello, it's me letter we just covered that said, I've left clues out at the bodies. So now this is contradicting, saying this last time I killed, I didn't leave a clue. He names a victim, Luby, which is actively one of the people we've discussed in this presentation that was killed by the Atlanta, Georgia child killer. There's the Moore reference, which we already understand is totally Zodiac. Actually, any of these crimes that we've talked about, this is almost a statement that has to be said in nearly every single communication, is that there's going to be more or that somebody is next. There's more you don't know about, which is also consistent with Tim Miller's letter. We've read this letter, but we haven't really discussed the dynamics of the Tim Miller letter. It comes up in at a much later time. He says by fire reference. I need to go back and check to see. There was a set of murders at a yogurt shop in Texas where the 4 kids that were killed at this yogurt shop were stacked on top of each other and were caught on fire and burned. I'm not sure what the date reference was to that, but we do know that the Zodiac made reference to by knife, by rope, by fire, by gun. So, and we didn't see a lot of by fire. I mean, as I go through these murders, we've seen a couple, like the Dominguez couple that was caught on fire, some very few and far between. But at one point when the Zodiac discussed that he was no longer going to tell anybody who he was killing or what he had done, he said he was going to make it look like fake accidents, fires. You know, he indicated that these are all things that were probabilities for something that would look like an accident, but that he had actually done. The letter also says, you can't catch me, which we know that is a running theme for the Zodiac. He said, wonder why he hasn't been caught. Now, this is a theme that I touched back with in the Tim Miller and Tom Voight letters. Understanding who is at fault is key in the Tim Miller, and in the Tom Voight, I believe he says, wonder why I haven't been caught, is because he turns in his fingerprints. He turns in all the evidence that he needs. He makes statements that he knows is going to make him complicit with the crime, but it's not turned over. He's not figured out, and nobody comes for him. He says he can get away with murder on any given day. We have to consider why that individual believes that's true. For me, I believe it's because he's very well covered, and they are going to purposely disrupt the investigations, if not even hide evidence, destroy evidence, get rid of evidence that would help or assist them in coming to this killer's apprehension. Politicians being worried while the plot thickens, running around like headless chickens. Again, this is where, you know, cops aren't cooperating. It's a theme that we've been looking at in the Zodiac killer case. Many people actually believe that the reason why the Zodiac killer killed in different jurisdictions is because he knew ultimately these police officers were not going to team up and work on this together. Instead, there'd be this pissing contest where each one thought that they would eventually solve this case. And it was a good ruse. I mean, honestly speaking, to do something like that.
The whole theme of the letter is taunting, just like Zodiac.
100%. And the politicians being worried, I want to add, everybody, at this particular time, we have Watergate being investigated in Atlanta, Georgia. So if that's where the Watergate Commission is, or the Warren Commission is being held, it's again, look over here, not over here. So we've got, you know, a whole bunch of children that are being killed, and everybody's paying attention to all these little kids that are dying instead of to what's actively going on in the politicians. And if Harriette's solves are true, and she's stating that he's writing back and forth through the media to politicians in order to get his help, or telling about who he's killed in order to fulfill whatever list or job that he's been ordered to do, then maybe that's why politicians would be worried. Otherwise, I really can't see why a politician would be worried about a serial killer.
Also, during this time, it's the presidential race with Reagan and Bush running against Jimmy Carter. And Carter's from Georgia. He was governor of Georgia before he became president. And he's from Plains, Georgia. So
well, then
this part of it might have been to make Carter look bad. Who knows?
Good point. Good point. I didn't know that. So I again, I'm not, that up on my history to know these things, but yeah, if he's working directly with Carter, as we've seen many of her solves roll out, then that would be a reason for a politician to be scared that he is actively working with the person perpetrating these crimes. But I don't know how that would benefit Carter in the end,
No,
unless
I'm thinking it's anti-Carter because he ended up losing the election, and having these things go down in his home state doesn't make the
him look good.
authorities in that state look good.
Correct. And I do see the connection between the Zodiac and the Bush, and we've seen him mention Reagan in the solves. And for the majority of the Carter communications that Harriette has solved, he's being really shitty and pissy with Carter. It isn't up until the last couple communications where we're seeing that he says he's gotten his remedy that he starts to talk nicely about Carter. Right. Cops don't cooperate. They'll never catch me. We know that's Zodiac. Bumbling mothers. Again, that's a that was one of those statements like fiddle fart around, or who uses this when attempting to get a point across. It says I've been with you every time. That's in relation to the Herb Cain letter. There's more to come, 50 to 48, which we had the Zodiac in the 1986 letter saying negative 100 plus, like basically you guess. And that's exactly what I take from him saying 50 to 48. Peace is misspelled, which is the letter E spelling error. Something is missing an E, which is another letter E spelling error that I track in the Zodiacs. And then no prints will be found. The Zodiac bragged about not having left any prints behind, despite what law enforcement said, because he actually covered his fingerprints up with some airplane cement. And then the ghost killer is the phantom sign-offs that we've been talking about, the Texarkana phantom, the red phantom in the California area, now the ghost killer, the freeway phantom in the DC area murders. So the phantom thing is something he's picked up on and has considered himself. And that's why I say he does kind of seem like a ghost. He moves into he goes to scout an area. Usually we have one murder. He then comes back. So now while they're searching for the murderer in this particular location, he's back in some other state, picking up his family and then moving into this area afterwards, looking like this good, family man with a family that has just shown up to this state, couldn't possibly be considered for these particular kills. We see 3 to 4, or more killings in maybe 11-month period, 12-month period, and then he moves the family out. So actually he goes to another place to scout. We see a murder there. He comes back, he picks the family up, moves the family, but ultimately he always has to go back, I feel like, in order to sum up some sort of business or belongings or whatever it is. Hello. We are on the ghost letter right now at this point in time, and I'm just breaking down some of the elements. So again, that makes him this phantom. People are looking for somebody that's not even there at the time when shortly after the murder occurs, and then when he shows up with the family, he just again looks like somebody who just moved into the area who couldn't be considered for the crime. I did start a handwriting examination on this and pulling out some of the words in comparison to Jack's cursive. And I wasn't all that shocked at what I saw. I see that in the letter T, there's my cursor here. Okay, I see that in the letter T, we have an entrance stroke in Jack's handwriting, which means that he actually enters from the baseline to move upward and then back down. I find that the slant of these writings are consistent with each other, and even the shape and style of the letters that are being written. We can see that up here in the double L's that, again, we have very similar shapes. Mm-hmm. They lean exactly the same. They definitely have an exit stroke. There were just some consistencies in here that I thought, wow, even in cursive. So I do want to get back to this letter, which will probably be, if I take a second trip at this presentation to actually attempt to firm up some of these things that I've stated that I wanted to research or I wanted to look at, that I could go a second round if I decided to continue a second round on this podcast. Another thing that I looked at was really
quick.
What's that?
You see how Can I say something really quick? Because there's a notation at the bottom of the one you sent me that you thought it was 1978. It's blurry. It looks like it's written by a guy who's damn near going blind. So.
Oh, I have no idea. This is just a bad copy for me. Either way, what I did note was this hyphen that comes before the word the ghost killer. Again, this is very consistent with what I had said about the phantom letters. Here's the freeway phantom letters. He's using a hyphen again in the sign off. And in the red phantom at the very beginning, he starts with one of these elongated hyphens. So again, very consistent with the phantom letters that we know to be to have been written or likely to have been written by the Zodiac killer. And that brings us to your solve, Harriette. So basically you have, it seems to take me forever to get this one done, but I've got it. This part says that Jack has no one. All right. So do you have that to read? Do you want me to read it and then you can make sense of it?
You can read it because it's part of the, like 4 parts of the 1978 stuff, the 2-bill and the other letters, the in control of all things, the card portion.
Okay. Let me read it because we've only got a couple minutes left. So it says, in other words, Ohio Edwards, and we do have somebody that came at me telling me they believed Ed Edwards was doing ciphers. And little queer, what's Zuck? X-U-C-K.
He's trying not to cuss. We said the word that you're not supposed to say. Anyways, go for it. Okay.
Little queer Zuck, UHF radio fan ATKID, Wayne Williams. So are you saying that Wayne Williams was gay? Or is he saying Wayne Williams was gay?
Everybody and their grandmother is saying he's gay. But anyways.
Okay. But bug President Jimmy Carter's home and phone line, his lick bell half value layer radiation absorbed dose, tiny image, reach milk money, Hogan's Heroes, Disney movie, Gus, live set play Scottsdale, Arizona star Crane is why must end murdered in his apartment in June. So TOUYIC. UTI. Okay.
It's in the movie. It makes the Gus, the animal, kick the ball.
Oh.
So he's saying something about that.
UTI underneath. Did you hear Nolan?
Under the influence of a medical leave, he's getting cured.
Oh, Harriette. Nolan was asking you a question. Did you hear him?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Is Gus the mule in the movie with Bob Crane?
Yeah, Gus. Yeah, Gus is the mule from Communist, whatever it is.
Yeah, it was a crazy comedy.
So UTI under the influence of 4850 paid leave for medical reasons, and then it's signed off no one. So can you explain to us this particular solve?
Jack is calling himself, or they're calling him no one because he's not Zodiac anymore. He's not D.B. Cooper. He's not Black Dahlia the Avenger. He's just no one. So, this particular solve, milk money, that is the early days of Bob Crane getting famous on the East Coast. Apparently, when he was on the radio, he was making just enough to cover the milk money for his family, and he would keep the milk out on the ledge during like 6 months out of the year because of how cold it was. So, and then he became the chef guy, also 1976, famous cooking chef, some kind of shows. There's a lot that is actually confirmed in that.
And he was on Hogan's Heroes?
Yes.
Yeah, he was on some kind of celebrity chef cookouts, and this was 70s. But the tiny image is what apparently, if I understand correctly, the ATKID was trying to break into the radio show business and TVs and things like that. So he apparently, according to these solves, had bugged Carter's phone lines and sent this to Crane. And then we got they're going after the Nazis at the same time period, and a lot of his old co-stars were actual Holocaust survivors. So their families were Holocaust survivors.
Okay, well, we're going to
So-
pick up on your final major solve at a later time. I've got about 30 seconds left here before we need to sign off. I believe it's the 4-part, but altogether goes into the microfilm coin and the Reagan ultimatum. So we'll pick up from there next week and start there. But I want to wish everybody a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Nolan and Harriette, for being here. And we will all see you next week. Do you guys want to sign off?
Oh, bye. Bye, everybody.
Yeah. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Hope you get better soon.